there's a lot of discussion, is online as good as face-to-face? I'm probably going to be the maverick and say the truth of the matter is, even using ClassLive, it's not. Okay? I simply fundamentally disagree with the people who say that doing it this way is as good as being face-to-face. That, in my opinion, that is not true. However, it's probably about 80 to 85% if you use this approach. It can be very good. It can be, while not the same, it can be comparable. So what I do is you lose a little bit of what you can do, but if you work hard at trying to incorporate them using those cameras, and I'll show you what I do, ask tons of questions and all of that, you can bring it up. And using the laptop like this where you can do derivations, you can bring stuff in from the web, you can do recording, you can get very, very close, okay? So I'm happy with this approach from an interactivity and from a learning point of view, but it's not like face-to-face. So that's just my... Will it eventually be? Probably. I think as bandwidth gets better and interactivity gets better and sort of the virtual notions of things get better, it may well be as good. I don't believe it is as good now. Now, relative to this asynchronous approach of chat rooms and all that, look, I'm telling you right now, don't use that crap. Just simply do not do an electronics correspondence course. I think they're terrible. I think it's the wrong way to do it. And this is such, in my opinion, a better technology for you and a better technology for your students. And just think, if I had to type this to you, guess what we've just lost? A large amount of time. And then you type back to me the question, guess what we've lost? A large amount of time. Okay? So that's my pitch. Also, I'm not in love with technology. I'm in love with economics. So to me, it's not about the technology. I don't care about the technology. All I want it to do is make me better able to teach economics to my online students. So different than maybe some of the people who teach you in educational technology, I simply don't care about it. So what I depend on is, like when Charlotte Larkin was over in technology, I depend on the tech people to keep me updated on what's the latest way to do it. I waste no time paying attention to the latest gimmicks that are coming out. I ask them, should I adopt this stuff? I depend on them to tell me when's the best time to do it and what the latest stuff is. I don't tweet, I don't Twitter, I don't Facebook, I don't do any of that stuff with my students, okay? And there's a reason why. The reason is that in an online class like this, with 30 students, let's say, if each of those students was actually serious, you'd be teaching 30 classes. Okay? You literally would be teaching 30 classes from a time, because they could engage your time that much, okay, if they did it right. Now, mercifully, the bottom 30% never pay attention, aren't showing up, but whatever. But nonetheless, there's that issue. Okay, this is basically the shell of sort of what it looks like. And so what you have in terms of the ClassLive, this is simply the introduction to the course. Now, this is not ClassLive yet, all right? So what I do, if you look here under Webliography, I then post some websites that I think are important for them to go to, and all they do is click on that, and then they go down and they can click on whatever I've posted them, immediately go to that site or whatever. So these are web pages that I think are interesting, data sources, whatever, that I think are important for them. Here's another area that I think is important. This is an interesting area here. This is what for me, it's called document sharing, but technically what it is all the ancillary materials, stuff other than what's in the textbook. One of the complaints that my students have is that I put too much up here. Okay, and that's probably something that you ought to think about. How much do you actually want to put up there? But I get so excited, I'll find this article, and I'll find that article, and I'll find this one. And so I just post it up there, and, but nonetheless. And let me just sort of give you an idea. So this one here, Let's see, where was it? Well, oops. And there's just a document, okay? And then I want them to read it, and then I can say, okay, we'll talk about it. So what I normally use these for is that, okay, I'm putting this up in doc sharing tonight. Next week or Tuesday, whenever our class is, we're going to start class by discussing this. And I'm going to pick one of you to start the discussion. I'm not discussing it, you're discussing it. Turn on your camera, you're mic'd. Now you lead the discussion, okay? So that's how I do that. Okay, so that's there. Now here is a couple of things that are important. This is the Dropbox, and there's nothing in there, but I do essay exams. I don't do multiple choice and true and false because the truth of the matter is they cheat. And any multiple choice question from any test bank is already out on the net. And if it's not out on the net, then what they're doing is sitting there with their cell phone in one hand, using their computer here, and they're Googling those test questions, and they're instantly going to the net. And so what I strongly recommend you do when you use this technology, do not give any multiple choice and true and false unless you're willing to sit there and make them up yourself. Now, once you've done that, you can never use them again because guess where they are? They're out on the net. Okay, so I just strongly recommend that you don't do that. Okay, so and here's where they'll drop in their essays, and then I can read them, and then it does this software does give you a way to mark up and comment to them, and there are other pieces of software that allow you to do that too. Okay, now here's another sort of difference. It depends on sort of over here. It sort of depends on how I feel from time to time. Sometimes I get real motivated to put a lot of stuff over here, and so like I've got essay 1, essay 2, and they, you know, and all of that. Like here's a sample test question that I put up. So sometimes I get real motivated to do that, and other times I don't. And I'm sort of kind of a split mind on what I call deconstructing the class into this module, that module, and all of that. Ultimately, I'm not a particular fan of that because it's not the parts that matter, particularly in economics, how you are able to think about it in totality, not the individual parts. So I have a little bit of a trouble about over deconstructing things, and so but sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't. Okay. Then let's just take a quick look. This is the syllabus, and what I do also, notice there are 3 names. We have 3 sections, and we have 5 sections actually of this class. So what we do is the following. There's a Monday night class, a Tuesday night class, a Wednesday night class, and a Thursday night class. We teach the ClassLive, which we're going to go to in a second, in a lab section. All students have access to the lab section, okay? So they can actually watch all 4 lectures from each of the different professors. They can attend all 4 of them, or they can attend only their own, okay, live. So that's why when you have more than one section of something, then I suggest you create a lab, and then you give the students the flexibility to be able to attend when they can. These are also recorded. These lectures are recorded, so while we don't require attendance, we require watching it. The software allows you to know if they watch it. So what we do basically in our class is we sit there and monitor if they're watching it. If they don't watch it, we kick them out of class. Okay, because it's the same thing as not attending. Either you got to watch it live or you got to watch it recorded. If you're not doing either of those, then we're going to kick you out of class and we're done with you. Okay, so I would also strongly recommend you think about that approach. Okay, now one of the things that is important, I think, too, in terms of the syllabus, just take a look. A lot more detail. Okay, there's a lot more detail. Now, here's another area where I might disagree with some of my colleagues in education. I'm not a fan of breaking everything down week at a time. These are adults. They know what the chapter is. The chapter headings break it out. They know when we're covering this chapter. For me to waste my time now replicating what's already in the textbook and putting it in here, to me, is treating them as if they're infants. I don't do that. I simply tell them, look, you're an adult. Here's the dates in which we're covering this material. The textbook outlines it. It tells you what the key concepts are, all that sort of stuff. You're responsible for doing that. And if you're not going to do it, well, you're not going to do well. I don't particularly care. Okay? So that's the syllabus, all right? And let me tell you two other things that you see this student lounge thing, and there's also something called virtual office. I kill both of those. I don't want them talking to each other unless I can hear it. Now why? In economics, what happens is they ask each other questions, and some student then gives an incorrect response. They all accept that as fact, and now it takes me another hour to fix it when I get everybody back together. So basically what I do is say, look, the chat room, the virtual office, all that crap is dead. You're not going to chat with each other. You're supposed to chat with me. Now, each week I have electronic office hours. Okay, so what I tell them is that two things. One is you can arrange to meet me online anytime. Give me 24 hours. We'll set up a time to meet in ClassLive. Also, what I then do is the half an hour before class starts, I go online and hold office hours. So my response to them is, your obligation is to talk to me, not talk to each other. If you're having questions, don't ask your buddy who doesn't know what this is either. Because then there's two of you that then don't know what it is. Ask me. And I do say to them, I'll respond. You give me 24 hours, we can meet online. It doesn't have to be at night, it can be during the day. So electronic office hours work well. Now, just like regular office hours, most students never, don't think that they're going to be any more responsive, okay? Now, so now here's the ClassLive part. So right here, you then click this. It's a voice over IP system, okay? And now notice what it says here, chat, which I never do. Here's the ClassLive, so you click there. Hopefully I did. Maybe not. Anytime. There it goes. Now, here's a couple of things that I think are important. First, when you sign in as the faculty member, the teacher, you're going to lead the discussion, okay? So never sign in here. So you tell your students they're joining, you're leading, okay? Now, more importantly, and this was a summer session, and some of these have been deleted, but what happens is they're all recorded, okay? And they're up there for a full semester. So what happens is if they cannot watch it or they want to go back and replay something, they can go back and replay whatever you said, or if they missed that night and couldn't make any of the other three. Now notice that syllabus is uniform. So we have the lab section, we have three different professors, 4 different sections, but we go through that course lockstep. Okay? We don't get ahead of each other, we don't cover different topics, so that the students have an opportunity to switch back and forth between the sections. Now, again, as much as you can. We try to keep it lockstep, okay? Now, let me just show you one. Maybe. There it goes. It'll open up. And it also gives you the time, how much time was on and whatever, who led the discussion. Maybe. Okay. Now again, if you're doing this with a dial-up modem or stuff, don't. I'm just telling you right now, it won't work. So you're going to have high-speed modem, DSL or something like that. Now wireless works fine. I've never had any, again, I sit in my lounge chair in the living room with my iced tea and my camera on and, at night. I do it from home. Now, a lot of the guys like to come up, or our faculty guys and gals like to come up to the office. I don't. I'm just as happy to do it at home. Okay, it's doing whatever it's doing. Now, occasionally you'll get knocked off. some issue on the internet or something. And so what I always tell them is, if I get knocked off, I'm going to come right back, and you have to wait at least 15 minutes. You got to give me the opportunity to get back on and get off. So if I get knocked off, okay, then I'll come back on. Then run. Okay. I got to tell a story. Well, I have to wait till we get into this. Okay, this is ClassLive Pro. Okay, so this is what it looks like, and this is good. Now this is a recording. This actually isn't. This is the recorded session. But notice essentially the students that you have in your class, okay, are going to be listed along here. Let me just sort of move down a little bit on this, and you can speed this up a bit. Let me just move it all the way. Okay, so a couple of things now, and it's going to require it to catch up. Okay. Oop. I messed it up again. Come on. All right. So this is my camera. So when you're talking about the camera, what you see is you'll see this little dialog box, and let me make sure that if it'll start running. Okay. It'll catch up in a second. Okay. So, and I can move this around. When I'm using a PC, sometimes I'll have two screens. Okay. So this is the dialog box, the camera box. Now this is your whiteboard. It's just like any other whiteboard. Now I can't write on it because, I'll show you how in a second, I can't write on it here because this is a recording. But basically anything you can do on a chalkboard, you can now do right here. Okay? So that's the whiteboard. Here's the list of all the students in my class. Okay? So I now know their names. And what I regularly do is, and if you look here, where did it go? There's a little emoticons. Here we go. Let me see if it'll play now. No, stop. So this happens to be a PowerPoint slide that I brought in. So sometimes I'll use PowerPoint, sometimes I'll do it by hand with like a walk. Sometimes I'll go to a web page. What I like to do is mix it up. Okay? Mix it up. Don't do the same thing all the time. Okay? Now, also I've got my students' names here. Also, this tells me that my microphone is on. The students can also type, and there are emoticons that they can do. So what I'm always doing is I'll say to them, okay, are you with me? I've gone through this. Everybody get it. I need to see a smiley face. Okay? If you're not getting it, then I need a frowny face. And I make a big deal out of that. Now, I got to tell you the best story. I was teaching one of my classes one night, a dual credit class in Melissa High School of sophomore economics. And I'm going, I need to see smiley face. I need to see smiley faces. And then I said, Brent, turn on your camera. So Brent turned on his camera. The entire class had made paper smiley faces. They were standing behind his camera, all of them with smiley faces. So it was hysterical, but the point of it is that I'm trying to get interactivity. And what I do is I say, okay, I need to see smiley faces. And let's say, you know, right here, Eduardo didn't put a smiley face. Then what do? Eduardo, I didn't see a smiley face. Did you get it or did you not? And that's one of the things I do to try to create interconnection with them and interactivity with them and let them know I am paying attention. Did you get it? Tell me by a smiley. Now, they can also raise their hand, so I require them. Now, here's one of the things that irritates me. They're so text-oriented that while I'm lecturing, they're going to ask me a question by texting me. What do I say to them? Don't do that, idiot. I'm not going to respond. Okay? Talk. Now, I do allow them, if they want to chit-chat with each other back and forth, down here, you see here, this is you can see some of them talking back and forth. So just like they can talk to each other in class, I'm okay with them chatting back and forth to each other in class, but I'm not okay with them texting me. And you really have to come down hard on this. The advantage of this is that it's interactive. If you type back and forth, you've killed the reason to use it, in my opinion. Okay? You're now wasting time with typing. Okay? Now, occasionally you'll have a student with a mic problem. And then what I do say at that point, if indeed you've got a mic problem or something like that, yes, you can type. That's the exception, not the rule. Okay? So again, what I'm getting them to do, I don't know why that's not playing. Okay? Now, let me just see if it will. Doesn't seem to be very happy. But normally it works well, so they can go back and forth, okay? So you sort of roughly see how it worked. So again, what I'm doing is I'm sitting there with a headphone on. When I want to talk, you see right here, I just put the talk button on. These tools up here, interestingly enough, audio, okay? There's audio setup wizard, and then what I do is set it up, test my microphone, and then I turn on 2 speakers. What I mean is that I keep my speaker on and then I tell the software, allow one other person to speak. So that basically whenever they want to talk, all they have to do is turn on their microphone, and then when they're finished, they turn it off. My microphone's always on. So that again, trying to get some sense of connection back and forth with them as much as it might be, okay, in sort of a face-to-face class, okay? So you kind of see that. You can load all kinds of stuff. So, I mean, it again. So let me show you one other thing before we go. Well, it's not helping me here. I can do this. So move this down, move this down. Now, what I'm going to do is now lead a session, if it'll let me. What time we go at 1 minute or 2 minutes? Let me just show you this part real fast, and then we'll go. And basically, in terms of the software, the first time that they actually sign on, there's an app that's downloaded, and then you never have that problem. You don't have that problem again. Now this is the version 10. That recording, if you'll notice, it said version 9.6. Remember, that was a recording. Okay? So it was the older version. Now again, notice cable DSL, okay? So now connecting, authenticating.
Recording in progress.
So essentially now that's what they hear. They literally hear you talking back and forth. So if I wanted to talk at this point, notice here are the emoticons, so the little happy face and all of that sort of thing. The speaker is down here that I can turn on, but notice this is what I like. So from my point of view as an economist, being able to, where's my whiteboard? All right, here's my whiteboard. So what I'm going to do is change my view to this. You can change, okay, and then, whoops. You can get different layouts. And here's the tall layout, maybe, or maybe not. But here's the whiteboard. So I can do a partial derivative. I can do whatever I want to do writing there. Now, I don't know why it's not, all right, let's look at, okay. So you can get this view. So there's, again, you pick a view that you're comfortable with, okay? The view that I normally pick gives me a bigger whiteboard and a smaller this sort of stuff. So let me see if I can't remember which. So we're looking at layouts. Okay, there it is. You see now? So I'm more interested in this guy here, and I'm less interested in their chatting down here. In fact, if I could get rid of their chatting down there, I would, but I can't. So I do this. No, also you can change it to colors, okay? If I want to change the color down here, get rid of this. This is a great one for us in economics. I can draw graphs, or I can use their line tool. Look at how nice I can make it if I want to. I can, now what I use a lot is this here. Come on. And then what I literally do is say, okay, do you see right here? Tell me what's going on right there. And I'll come over here and look at the person's name and I'll say, okay, Eduardo, what is it that I'm pointing to here? And what does that mean? And guess what? They can then draw on it. I said, now you draw on this and tell me what happens next. And then I say to the rest of the class, you watch and make sure he gets it right. If he doesn't get it right, then I need someone to speak up about why he got it wrong or why. Now, I can also share software. So we do a lot of statistical stuff and statistical software, forecasting, Excel spreadsheets, any of that. I can share that screen. I can share a web page. So you can see, again, how, in the little time that we had together, you can see how really, truly interactive this is. And in some ways, actually, a little bit better than a classroom in terms of the visual aid stuff. Probably a little bit better than what you can do in a classroom. Okay, well, what time are we done now? Let's see what time we're done. Oh, we were done, well, it said we were supposed to start at 11. We didn't. So I'm assuming we started at 11:30. We ought to be done at 11:50. Okay, so you guys have any questions about it? Okay. Now, I think the bit of advice I would give you is you can't break it. So don't worry about breaking the software. And I'm not averse to telling my students, oops, I forgot. Or, oh, I screwed that up. You know, I'm not afraid of saying that. And several times they've even come back and said, oh, by the way, did you know that if you did it this way? And I go, oh, cool, thanks. You know, what I don't do is set myself up as an expert. You do have the ability, in terms of looking here, of turning off their microphone. So if you do have a student, I've never had an unruly student, but if you do have an unruly student, you can literally turn their microphone off. Here's a nice feature too. If you look here, we can do polling. So if you look at this result here, okay, I can ask a question. I can type the question up immediately, and sometimes I'll start a class by typing in a question. So I can go here and type in a question, and then it's, okay, now what do you think the answers are? And then set up a poll, and then have them respond, and then use that as a way to start the lecture. Okay, and you can do that throughout. You can also set up sub-rooms and other, I don't do any of that. It's just not, I know in education classes they do a lot of that. In economics, we just don't do that sort of thing very much. But there's just all kinds of really interesting things. You can import an entire Excel PowerPoint slide in here, and then you can click it as you go through. I try not to do that. I might import one or two and then go to the whiteboard. Don't just use PowerPoints because that's not very interactive in my opinion. Now, even if you have it in there, you can write on it and whatever, but I think it really matters to be interactive as you're writing something on the whiteboard itself. I think that helps them and it creates a different sense of classroom. But I'm constantly, so what I will do is I'll lecture, then I'll go, okay, I need my smiley faces. How many get it? Then I'll lecture and I'll get, okay, I need smiley faces, okay, or frowny faces, or whatever. So I'm constantly lecturing, stop, demand some kind of interaction with them. Somebody else turn on your camera, I'm going to turn mine off, okay, and try to create as much interaction as you can. So that's it. Any questions?
But now you're not going to have many students that have a laptop like that.
No, they can be doing it from a PC or a laptop, but they're not going to be doing it with a tablet like I have. Almost none of them.
Use a mouse.
They're just using a mouse.
Draw.
Yeah. So you're just going to use a mouse to draw. Yeah. And because generally you've drawn it up, and then all you're asking them is either to move the graph or pointing to a partial derivative and say, is that partial derivative correct? Okay, but that's the beauty of it, and that's what I like about it, because you've got it there, you can point to it, and then you can literally say to them, okay, Ted, is this partial derivative here correct? If it's not, show me what's wrong with it. That's amazing, truthfully. And by the way, talking to each other all the time. So that's what I like about it. Not perfect, not without its problems. Okay. I think the biggest challenge for me was trying to figure out how to be interactive. It's hard sitting there, and keeping my energy level up when you're talking to a white computer screen. That's why I force them to turn their cameras on and why I'll have mine on, because I simply can't maintain that energy level if I'm talking to that doggone thing. So that for me was, I had to find some way to keep my energy level up, and it was their cameras and my camera. Now, a lot of our faculty don't like the camera. Man, to me, it just makes it so much better, and the students like it. You know, now you do have to warn them that if you're in your pajamas, you know, if you're sitting there in a nightie, let me know, okay? Because we're not going to turn your camera on, okay? We're not turning your camera on, okay? But I think that was the hardest. And then once you get that energy level of yourself going, trying to find ways to force them to respond to you. And that's an ongoing issue. And I don't know that I have all the right ways to do it, but most of the students are very comfortable, right? I mean, the complaints about me is that I'm a hard ass, excuse my French, but not that the class was bad. It's that I'm just demanding and tough. You know, cowgirl up. I don't really care. And that's the other thing I tell them. You're in my class. You're going to do what I tell you to do. You don't like it? Out. You know, you meet my standards. You know, I'm not a relativist.
I guess that answers my next question. Did you not have any problem with any of them saying they couldn't afford? What about the...
Yeah, I don't care. Then what we basically say, then you take it some other way. I don't care. You're out. The other thing I will tell you that has battled with me, and I am marginally sympathetic, but I'm not, is this issue of convenience. So a lot of people like this asynchronous because it's, quote, convenient. And I don't care about convenience. What I care about is, are you going to learn? And are you going to learn what I think you need to know in order to meet the challenges? So that's why we do the lab sections, and that's what we like about the recording. So if they for some reason can't watch it, and sometimes that happens, you know, because these are an MBA problem. They're adult learners. Some of them have been in Iraq and Afghanistan, but they can always watch it. And I've done office hours for kids in China, okay? I taught this class, sad story, from Christchurch, New Zealand, with this machine, with my students all over the world, and I was in Christchurch, New Zealand, and it wasn't any different than teaching it here. Okay? I mean, it really, you can do it anywhere in the world. No, I think I've taught high school. I do this for my high school dual credit class in Melissa. And they love it. They're the ones that did the smiley face. They were so proud of themselves. I was too, actually.
What a great way for them to do presentation type things with each other because they can all get on.
Yeah, and I think office, you know, now in Melissa, I would go once every 2 weeks. I'd drive out there just because I'm nuts. You don't have to.
She brings up a good question. Can your students upload a PowerPoint to this?
Yes.
And then, wow.
And then talk from it so
Yeah.
they can actually do...
And if they can't directly, then all they have to do is email it to me and I'll upload it.
Yeah, yeah. That's where they use that Dropbox.
Mm-hmm. Usually I use the Dropbox for their essays. Yeah. And you can do breakout sessions, and they can, if you want, I don't do it, but you can break these out into sub-elements with one set of screens for this group, a different set of screens for this group, and they can work together, and then you can bring them all back together.
So you can have multiple.
Yes.
Like a group
You can have 4 or 5 different groups working at the same time, then come back to the entire classroom, and then make a presentation to everybody.
Wow.
We just don't do a lot of that, but you can. Yeah. Okay. And you need, to some extent, too, just make sure you understand, we're driven so much by mathematics and statistical stuff that for us, there's no time for that kind of thing. We have so much quantitative material to get through, and I think that's the difference. How you would do this in an English class, would be different, but I think you could go to websites, you could bring up art pictures, you could have discussions, there's just a lot of, again, I think a lot of stuff you could do. I just don't have experience with it in the soft stuff. Soft meaning non-quantitative stuff. So I don't know. But I think it would be great. I think you could do whatever you can do. Whatever you want to do, you can do. I like the polling one. You can show, by the way, YouTube videos. Yeah. So whatever you have on your computer, you can share with them. Okay. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And it's mainly self-taught. So what I did, Charlotte and the guys, they did a seminar initially, and then what they said was, and they're absolutely true, once you've gone through the basic intro part of it, then just go play. Just go do it. And I teach the same number of hours that I teach in a regular classroom. I teach the same number of hours here. So I teach 3 hours a night. I don't shorten, and much to the chagrin of, I guess, some of my students.
Will it show what's on your desktop, or is everything viewed through?
No, what you can do,
You import it in?
what I can do is go here. Let me open up, let's open up Excel. Okay. And then we'll go back here. This is one of the reasons I like more than one screen. So now I've got Excel up there. So what I can do is click this and share. Okay. And then usually what will happen is and I don't know why it's not now, but what it'll come up with is anything that I know why. Okay. Usually what will happen is it'll list all the stuff that you have open, and all you have to do is click whatever that is, and it'll immediately share.
And it lets them view that.
Mm-hmm. So what you'll see is that this part here, so the Excel part would be big, and then it shrinks the ClassLive part over to here, and then the software that you're using, okay? Yeah. It's, oh, here it is. There it is. Come on. I did. Okay. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Okay. Well, all right. So now, okay. So now that's what they see. And then I can go in here in Excel and do whatever I want to do, move the Excel thing up. And by the way, they can then come and touch it. So they can then use their mouse to come over here and say, but wait a minute, I don't understand. What did you do there? Why was that way? Okay, and it's really great in the quantitative areas, but I would think in literature and marketing management, it would be great to be able to do this. And so now they're seeing the same thing I'm seeing. And both of us can touch that screen. So, okay?
Very good.
Okay.
Very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, it's a short amount of time in which there's a lot to cover, but at least it gives you a flavor for
We'll go play.
what to do.